This is the Athlon Argos, named after the Greek city of Argos, the oldest continuously inhabited city in Europe. Athlon has a reputation for being one of the best values in high-quality optics, and we're going to see if this 6-24 by 50mm scope lives up to that reputation. This is the Athlon Argos 6-24 by 50 BTR Riflescope. Athlon is a US-based company. The scope itself is, like many of its competitors, is built and assembled in China, but Athlon is a legit US company, and they have an excellent lifetime warranty that is comparable to Vortex's. Take this with a grain of salt. I haven't had a reason to send this in for a warranty. Well, maybe that's a good thing. So anyway, nice box, informative, gray, and inside, more of this cracked marbled look. We have our scope, and we have a CR2032 button battery. Again, that's for the illumination of the reticle, and it is a glass etched first focal plane. We have a set of nylon washers, and that is for the zero stop. Now, the difference between when I bought this, there was no Gen 2, but they just came out with the Gen 2, which has a brass zero stop. From what I hear, from what I know, again, I don't use them, so I don't have first-hand knowledge. From what I understand, these work well enough. A little bit mushy, a little bit of play when you're using the nylon washers as a zero stop. The Gen 2 has a much more solid zero stop. So if you are a competition long-range shooter, you may want to consider that. But these Gen 1s are perfectly fine if you find these on special, because they are the Gen 1s and everyone's moving to Gen 2s for whatever reason, for their own reasons. These are definitely a steal. It comes with a manual, and it comes with an Allen wrench. That is for taking off the turrets and resetting the zero, and a microfiber cleaning cloth. Oh, and it did come with lens caps. So let me just take this out and show you the scope. It is a nice looking scope, even for today. Even though it's a few years old and has got a couple of bumps from, that's just me, and some scratches from being on the rings. But this is a solid feeling, and when I first got it, I thought, wow, this is a nicely built scope. The turrets are very tactile and positive. That is possibly one of the loudest turrets that I have ever tested in any of the Riflescope brands that I've tested or owned. And there's a little bit, just the slightest wiggle before you get into a click, but there's no ifs, ands, or buts. These are awesome turrets. In terms of tactile feel, there is no ambiguity whether or not you're going to the next click. It is rock solid. Some of you there's like a fraction of a millimeter. Only if you're like super anal would you say, oh, it's not aligned. It's aligned. Come on, there's no way you're gonna misconstrue what hash mark you're on. And it's the same case, maybe just slightly less loud on your windage turrets, but it still feels solid. The parallax focus, very smooth. It goes from 10 yards to infinity, 500 to infinity yards. Again, very smooth. So is your magnification ring. A bit stiff even after a few years, but then again, I'm not a competition shooter, so I don't really switch between the magnification power very often. It's usually set around 16 or 18, and then I'll bump it up to 24 just to look for holes on paper. But usually I'm shooting at around 16 just for the best contrast and sharpness on my targets. And it does have built-in illumination. This just uses the 2032 button battery and a first focal plane Christmas tree type of a reticle, which we'll look at in depth next. The built-in illumination is not midday daylight bright, but is made for dusk and low light situations. Here we're going from 1 to 11 in its power and illumination settings.
3,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and this is at max 11. To test long-range image quality, I pointed the scope at the peak of Mount Davidson 1,200 yards away. Fog is clearly visible flowing through the trees and over the hillside. As we bring the magnification up to 24 power, we can clearly make out a white 8-foot-tall trail marker sign about 3 mils down and 2 to the right of the center crosshairs. This is roughly equivalent to a 30-inch tall IPSC target, but in semi-profile. And next, we take it to the range. I've owned the scope for over 4 years, and I've run easily over 1,000 rounds of 5.56 with it mounted onto my AR. So yeah, you could say I've done long-term testing of this optic. In that entire time, I've never had a problem with it holding zero, and I can spot my own holes on paper from 100 and 200 yards. The optic has a forgiving eye box with an eye relief of 3.3 inches that stays consistent as you change the magnification. The darkening or vignetting of the image you're seeing here is not in the scope. It's because I accidentally bumped the camera and misaligned it. The image seen through the naked eye is crystal clear with good contrast, color rendition, and detail, and even at 24 power is only slightly darker than the ambient background. Next, I took it to the 100-yard range at the Law Enforcement Training Center for more controlled lighting conditions for the optical clarity and turret testing. We start with a box test. Full rotation on the elevation. Full rotation on the windage. Full rotation back on the elevation. Full rotation back on the windage. The reticle returned to its original position, so it passed the box test. Okay, we're going to do the nipple twister now. So I'm just going to randomize. This test, coined by Cyclops Joe, is where we really abuse the turrets and see if it returned to its original position. Okay, and then we're going to bring it all back to 0. And it passed the nipple twister. All right. The scope has 60 MOA of adjustments in windage and elevation, so let's take it back to 6 power and see what that looks like. We're going to see how much of an adjustment we have on the turrets here. Now, the graying out of the image you're seeing here is not actually something you'd see looking through the scope. It's an unfortunate byproduct of the camera adapter mount that I have connected to this optic to film it, so please take this with a grain of salt. Windage. There you go. Next, let's take a look at clarity and resolution using a still image. I've taken the clearest photo I could at maximum magnification of 24 power, and I've enlarged the image by 150%. And the reason I'm doing this is because our eyes are normally much sharper than any camera or video camera, and this is a much truer representation of what you'd actually see through the scope itself. At 100 yards, we can see a .22 caliber hole on paper as well as easily on the shoot and see target on the left. In the U.S. Air Force's optical resolution test chart on the right, I can make out detail down to element 3 in the -1 group column, which is about as good as some 36 and 40 power spotting scopes. Before I get into what I really think about the Athlon Argos, I would just like to ask you to please hit that like button and the notification bell so you'll be notified the next time I post a product review. And please subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and share this with your friends who dig this kind of content. And if you're interested in watching other cool stuff, check out and subscribe to my new channel, Moondog R&D, a channel focused on gadget reviews, photo and video gear, geeky stuff. Spoiler alert, I like this scope. The fact that I've had it on my AR for the last 4 years kind of says something, but its flaws are still worth noting. Its turret markings are not exactly aligned. Maybe I'm just too OCD. If I am, you tell me, leave me a comment about that. Everyone who's looked through my scope remarks that they really like the reticle, but I wish there was just a hair of a gap in the center crosshairs like there is with the MOA version of this scope. And for those of you who prefer an MOA versus a mil radiance scope, the Christmas tree reticle is only available in the mil version of the Argos. Price is another consideration. The Gen 1 Argos is still available and they retail for around $275, and for a first focal plane scope with optics this good, that's a really good value. For comparison, a Vortex in this price bracket is a non-illuminated second focal plane scope. So pardon the pun, with the Argos, you get more bang for the buck. So if you're interested in picking up a Gen 1 Argos like mine, or one of the new Gen 2s, I'll include a link to more information on my website at moondogindustries.com. And if you got something out of this review, please hit that like button, or hit the unlike button if you think I should have covered something else, and let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. You be safe out there. Moondog, out. Hey, if you like this video, please share it on social media. You know, Facebook, forums, MeWe, whatever platform you're on. And if you want to see more videos, check out moondogindustries.com.